Welcome back and welcome to our media panel, the last of the year. It's Good Morning to listener columnist Bill Ralston and media commentator Brian Edwards. Welcome to you both. We're going to look at some of the best and worst of the media this year, and I want to start with some photojournalism that we were very impressed with. These images taken by the listeners David White, some revealing photos at the Labour Party conference last weekend. You can see more of these on their website, which is listener.co.nz. But Bill, if I can point to you, a picture so often tells 1,000 words, or is worth 1,000 words, isn't it?
Well, you use the word photojournalism, and it is. You don't see a lot of it. You know, it's on the Listener website. I was looking at it yesterday, and it told me as much about the conference and the feel of the conference as any of the stories that I've been reading or hearing on television as well. So, yeah, no, and congratulations to David White. He's a good photographer, great photographer, and I think that's a fitting sort of monument to that conference anyway.
Indeed.
Yeah, I thought they were brilliant as well, those photographs. Absolutely loved them, really. And an interesting thing is, you know, people like me who work in the whole area of media training and advising politicians and the like, some of the things we say are often derided by people, but, you know, even your face, the sort of face you have, is significant in politics, really. And so David Cunliffe, for example, we come to this terrible subject again, doesn't have a good face, really. There's something about his face that people think,
not when he's grinning. Not when he's got that big grin.
That's right. Well, there's a lovely thing comparing him to a Cheshire cat, in fact, which I saw somewhere. Yeah. You know, having a good face is quite important. Funnily enough, I think actually that David Shearer probably has got quite a good face. So there you are.
There we go.
Who knows?
There were some good faces this year on the GC, which also enthralled you, didn't it, Brian?
Well, there were really more good bodies on the GC than good faces. Yeah, that was a fascinating programme we had really early in the piece. And we learned all sorts of amazing things. I actually wrote some of them down because I can't possibly remember them. There's a whole new language to be learned from that programme. We discovered that females were actually aunties. There was something called publics, which was hair down there, which you can take to mean whatever you like. In like swimwear apparently means tight. I'm going to leave that alone as well. Single to mingle, which meant it was a good thing to have a single relationship, not get involved with anybody too permanently. Gosh. And get your creep on, which I liked best, which meant to score. What interests me is there hasn't yet been a second series of this, as far as I know.
You're hopeful?
Well, I'm not sure. I tell you what,
it was amazing escapism, though.
Well, it was. But I tell you what, something that's interesting about it. All those young people who are on the GC had great plans to be wealthy and rich. What we're seeing now are New Zealanders and Australia saying it's terrible here because nobody looks after us. You know, we can be citizens, but we don't get the rights of citizens. We don't get benefits and so on.
It's kind of odd that New Zealand, and we had the Ridges, of course, this year as well.
Yes,
New Zealand sort of got into reality TV almost at the time in which internationally it seems to be on the wane, but we were trailing along.
I think you were saying to me The Ridges was your favourite programme of the year.
I enjoyed it.
You liked it a lot.
The Herald now went compact. The world didn't end. We were told that it would go compact, but it wouldn't necessarily become tabloid. Bill, do you think
its content hasn't gone tabloid. I actually find it really easy to handle. I've begun to figure out where all my favourite bits of the Herald are to read, where my columnists are and where the metro section is.
Did you find difficulty doing that before?
No, but I like the bigger paper as well. But I think if they're going to go compact, and I can see why they did, it's a pretty good compromise that they've come up with.
Oh, I hate it, you know. I lie in bed reading it, and it's a miserable sort of thing, it seems to me, really. And then on Saturday, the Weekend Herald arrives, and then I feel I've really got a newspaper to read. Yes, it is more difficult to do all that sort of thing with it, but it feels like a newspaper. I mean, you were saying earlier you don't want to read books on your iPad because you want real books. I feel like that with newspapers. You know, this feels like a real newspaper.
The only thing I noticed with the Herald is that they tend to have shifted a lot of their news features to Saturday because they've probably got more space. You know, they've got some good writers there like Phil Taylor and David Fisher, who I'd like to see more of in investigative features during the week in the compact edition.
Maybe we're running out of time to read them all. You know, maybe that's why they think they'll put them for us in the weekend. One of the big stories that dominated pretty much every newspaper was the trial of McDonald, the Scott Guy murder trial. This was a fascinating story. Everyone was talking about it for weeks.
It was absolutely fascinating. And I think one of the reasons was that the average person looking at that trial thought McDonald was guilty. And when the trial was over, most people were saying, regardless of this verdict, I still think McDonald was guilty. That's actually changed now. I think that's an interesting thing now. And the piece which appeared in North and South about the trial, I think, will have changed people's opinions as well. But we were glued to our television sets. And I sometimes think it would be nice to have what they have in the States, where you can see trials on television, you can have court TV, and we could watch this stuff. But of course, an utterly tragic end to the whole business.
Well, see, I mean, the Ewan McDonald's trial was an interesting story in itself, but it wasn't. I didn't see any great areas of journalism around it. To me, the stories of the year were things like Kim.com. A guy that just keeps on giving, You've got the FBI, you've got a man who looks like a Bond villain, you've got the Prime Minister getting caught up in it, John Banks getting caught up in it, the spy agency, there were so many layers to that story, and everybody kept breaking bits of it. I thought it was one of the greatest stories of the year, along with ACC, because it's a long while since I've seen a cabinet minister, a chairman, 2 board members and a CEO all go down in flames.
Kim.com, I absolutely agree with you. And of course, the man's tremendous sense of humour, I think, came into it. His larger-than-life persona, larger in every way, of course. And that clip that they keep showing of him driving his Mercedes across the golf course, you think, you just have to like this guy. You just have to like him.
But Steve, I think what changed the country's perspective, really, because let's face it, up until that interview with John Campbell, where he came across as very eloquent and educated and intelligent and a bit bullied by the FBI, I think we'd all thought, with the greatest respect, that he was some big, loud brute who just lorded around and had loads and loads of money. That interview with John Campbell, to me, was what maybe changed the country's perspective of Kim.
Can we talk about John Campbell for a moment? And because to me, the most significant thing that we've seen on television in a sense has been the work of John Campbell, which has been absolutely extraordinary. I've described him in the past, I think, as an advocacy journalist, who's someone who runs campaigns. And the work that he has done for Christchurch in a variety of ways, because he was very involved in Christchurch in the early days, immediately after the earthquake, but also the work that he's done to prevent schools being closed down, schools being amalgamated, and now with this whole ridiculous pay business, he's actually got results. And I think he's an extraordinary journalist, and I'm still amazed that he didn't win something in the awards.
Wow.
And then, of course, we've seen the rise of John Campbell. We've seen the end of Close Up on TVNZ, Bill Ralston, and Mark Sainsbury's gone. Yeah,
the big question is what they bring in next year now. As the program goes, 7 o'clock is a key time in the schedule for TV1, TV2 and TV3. It's critical that they at least hold audience, if not expand it at 7 o'clock. Can they do it? That's going to be the big $1 million question.
Can I say something about Mark Sainsbury? Over the years, and probably including on this programme, I've been quite critical of Mark Sainsbury and critical of the programme. A week or so back, I watched him do an interview with the Archbishop of Canterbury. It was in a nice, quiet setting, and it was just an absolutely beautiful interview, a stunningly good interview. A couple of nights ago, I saw him do another interview with Matt McCartan, who was on here this morning, and a young girl who's still alive, although she was expected to die of cancer some years ago. Beautiful, very emotional, very moving, but never mawkish. And I thought, I wonder if I've got it wrong about Mark Sainsbury over all these years, that maybe he is someone very talented in that quieter area who's been miscast doing all these terribly aggressive interviews. So I want to sort of almost apologise to Mark for that.
Is he perhaps in the wrong time slot then?
No, well, I think his strength is those relaxed human type of interview. He can relate really well to people. He's probably not at his best doing blood on the floor type interviews. So, you've got it right there, that he has a natural strength and humanity to him that actually comes through on television.
I also want to touch on bloggers and the influence that they have had this year and the social media that we know a key thing broke that story on his blog, which was an extraordinary story about the chaos, the information you could get from wins. And of course, bloggers now, we're being told, are leading the charge a lot, we see, with this Labour Party leadership. Are we seeing the rise of the blog from a blogger?
Well, there are all sorts of different types of blogs. And I've got to say that the vast majority of blogs are not particularly intelligent. And the least intelligent thing you will find are the people who make comments on blogs. It is absolutely appalling, the crap that people write when they write into blogs, and unpleasant and nasty stuff that you find on there. But if you look at the Labour Party conference, that was preceded by a whole swag of people thought to be on the left opposing David Shearer. And I think that was really quite a significant thing.
And crucially here, they're anonymous, these bloggers,
well, that's true.
aren't they?
Look, I think the point you raised with David Shearer earlier about the effect of the Standard blog, that ran a campaign completely out to destabilise him, probably made the situation much worse for David Cunliffe. The Standard is a kind of blog that is very, very dangerous for any political party that it supposedly supports.
These are changing times,
But you can have an intelligent blog.
You can, can't you? Was it
Where do you find it?
brianedwards.co.nz?
It could be that one, yes.
It could be
yes.
that one. All right, gentlemen, we have to leave it there. Bill Ralston, Brian Edwards, very much appreciate your time this morning. Thank you. That brings us to the end of our program for the week and the year. We very much hope that we will see you again in 2013. Remember, all our stories and interviews can be seen on our website, frontpage.co.nz, frontpage.co.nz.